Harlequin Desire, Cowgirls Don't Cry, Red Dirt Royalty, Silver James. And we continue on. Discretion is the better part of valor, I guess. She watched Chance retreat. What the hell does that mean, Uncle Boots? It means you've got the man tied up in knots, honey. He wants you enough to stand up to his daddy, to get you. Boots inclined his head toward the picket line. The rope stretched between two trees where the trail horses were loosely tied for the night. He watched her face to make sure she paid attention. A television reporter and a cameraman interviewed one of her volunteers who was brushing his horse for the evening news. Who do you think started the media? Why do you think we suddenly got all this attention and more riders? Ha! I don't believe it at all. Nadine stuck her head out the RV. Well, you better believe it, Cassie. They got a call from Chance's office. Leastways, that was what the producer feller told me. Your story is all over the news, here and nationally. All the networks picked it up, considering Cyrus Barron owns the newspapers around here and a bunch of TV radio stations. Just how else do you think the national folks tumbled to this little shindig? Cass leaned back in the chair and swiveled her head just far enough to keep track of Chance. He'd walked back to his pickup truck, leaned against the front fender, talking to another man just as tall, dark, and handsome. Had to be one of his brothers, but for her life she didn't know which one. Why would he do that? He loves you. He's in love. Boots and said it first, but Nadine's assertions echoed a half a beat faster. No, 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 no. This wasn't happening. Chance Barron didn't love her. He couldn't. He just wanted her ranch so that his father could erase all the memory of Ben Morgan from the face of this earth. Cass had finally finagled all the full story out of Boots. How Cyrus had pursued her mom, but she'd married her dad instead. She couldn't fathom why a man as rich and powerful as the senior baron carried such a long-standing grudge. 3 hard days in the saddle had rubbed the furious off of her temper, though. She remained miffed at the old man for not telling her that Chance's real identity. Boots' revelation over Chance's feelings left her own unsteady. When she realized her hand was still curled around the shotgun, she carefully placed it back on the ice chest. No, I can't deal with this. Not now. I have 500 head of cattle yet to market, and 1 more day to get it done. We've made good distance, Cass. We only have about 5 miles to go. She closed her eyes and laid her head back against the chair. It might as well have been 1,000, Uncle Boots. We hit the country line tomorrow. You know Cyrus Barron will have every deputy in Oklahoma County lined up to keep us out. Even though I managed to get the permits from Oklahoma County, I don't believe for a second that they'll be worth the paper they're printed on. Even if the sheriff and his deputies don't stop us, there'll be the whole Oklahoma City Police Department waiting at the city limits. The barons always get their way. You forgot, hon, the media will be there too. Sheriff Wallace is up for re-election. You're a huge story. Hands on her ample hips, Nadine climbed down the steps and stopped right in front of Cass. You're the underdog. The pretty little girl taking on the big bads with a ragtag group of volunteers. From the information the national outlets are reporting, you can bet someone on the inside spilled the beans. Mr. Chance Barron, in fact. Cass shook her head, unable to believe that Chance would stand up to his father. What's in it for him? Nadine chuckled. A pretty little blonde who hog-tied his heart. No, there's something more. He doesn't love me. If he did love me, he wouldn't have lied, and he damn sure wouldn't have betrayed me like he did. The rumbling bass thrum of a diesel engine caught her attention. Chance and the man he was with had climbed into the pickup. She watched as Chance carefully backed the truck onto the road and headed east. The bright lights of Oklahoma City shone just like jewels shattered on a pair of faded jeans. Yeah, he loved her all right. He tucked his tail between his legs and slunk off like the dirty dog he was. But he whined almost as if he had read her thoughts. She dropped her hand to his head and scratched his ears. No offense, buddy, she murmured. The dog growled softly in reply, but dropped his chin to the toe of her boot and settled in for a nap. He worked hard, and she was going to buy him the biggest steak Cattleman's Cafe had on the menu once the herd was delivered to the stockyards. She had the cash in her pocket to buy that steak, and one for Boots and Nadine, too. Chance ignored his brother, and as he gunned the big diesel engine of the Ford F-250, I know what I'm doing, Cord. No chance you don't. The old man is already stroking out from this mess. How the hell did the national media get the story? I told him. You what? Damn, little brother, do you have a death wish? The old man is going to cut you off at the knees. He can try, Cord. He moistened his dry lips with a tongue resembling sandpaper and loosened his white knuckle grip on the steering wheel. Look, we all know that he's being a jerk about this, and he can't get his hands on that ranch anyway. Oh, you're that sure that she's going to get those cows to the stockyard and sold? Doesn't matter if she does or not. I paid off the mortgage and put the deed solely in her name. Oh, hell, son, tell me that ain't so. The old man will shoot you dead right where you stand. Cord scrubbed his fingers through his hair. Does she know? Not a chance. She'd fight me all the way, Cord. Besides, this is something she has to do on her own. She needs to find out what's important. And that's what's here is important. That I'm important to her. Do you truly believe she'll be grateful? She throws herself into your arms, kisses you all over, and falls in love. Chance squirmed in his seat, remembering Cassie's kisses. She's already in love with me, Cord. She just hasn't admitted it yet. Damn it, Chance, are you really going to throw away everything for that girl? He didn't hesitate a moment. Yeah, I am. Chapter 15. Her wristwatch read 5 minutes after 5. Cass sipped the cup of coffee Nadine handed her and watched the sky in the east lighten from cobalt to lapis. Wisp of the cloud looked like watercolor brush strokes and shades of sangrias and salmon. Red sky at morning, sailors take warning. Cass recited the old weather adage. A voice rumbled behind her. Well, it's a good thing we aren't on the water then. She chuckled as the man stepped up beside her. Good morning, Uncle Boots. Nadine handed him a and Cass noticed how their fingers lingered against each other. She'd seen this coming, and it lightened her heart. Nadine and Boots made a good match. Maybe she should turn over the ranch to the Barons. Boots and Buddy could move in with Nadine. Cass could choose any city in the country and pick up the pieces of her life. Not far away, a horse whickered, answered by the lowing of the moo of one of the cows. She inhaled. The aroma of the coffee in her mug mingled with the hot, acrid smell of dust, leather, trampled grass, and dry, sweet scent of Bermuda hay all hit her nose, and it smelled like home. No, she couldn't give up the ranch. Not now, not after all the battles she fought. The camp stirred around her, quiet voices as people finished quick breakfast. They were punctured by the stamp of horses' hooves as they all saddled, the creak of the leather and the jangle of the bridle bits as riders mounted, an occasional whinny of the horses, and humans worked to gather the herd, added to the music of Buddy's happy barks. Cass swallowed the last bit of her liquid in her cup. I'll saddle our horses, Uncle Boots. You finish your coffee. The first vivid scarlet of the sun's curve poked above the horizon. Cass looked at the knot of riders awaiting her. Signal. This was it. About 6 miles to end of her rainbow. She needed a big pot of gold when she reached it. Her throat closed and she couldn't breathe for a long moment. Boots nudged his horse up beside hers. What's up, baby girl? Her smile wavered. Just a memory. At his arched brow and curvious head tilt, she continued, Do you remember the spring Mama died? He nodded. She swallowed. Around the lump. Lots of storms that year. There was a double rainbow after one of them, and Daddy loaded me up in the truck to go chase the end of it. We drove all over 3 counties, me pointing and shouting all the way. I swear that thing stayed in the sky for a couple of hours. I was so disappointed when it faded. Daddy held my hand on the way home, even when he had to shift gears. When we got one out, he told me that Mama gave me that rainbow to show me that chasing my dreams was never a waste of time, and to remind me that she always would watch over us. Boots cleared his throat and then coughed softly. For such a hard man, Ben was just an old softy when it came to you and your mama, baby girl. She inhaled and exhaled, her chest rising and falling, but the constricting only lessened slightly. Daddy's watching over me now, Uncle Boots, and I want him to be proud of me. Cass rose in her stirrups and addressed the riders. Head 'em up, folks. Time to move out. Buddy barked and raced to the back of the herd. The others reined their horses into position and remained quiet, while the drag racers pushed the herd forward. Amid the moos and the bleats and the cattle milled around, then moved forward. Outriders funneled through them through the gate of the field where they camped. Boots had led the way, setting the pace with fences on either side of the section line road. It was more a matter of keeping the herd moving. They wanted to stop and graze in the right of way. This was their 4th day of the drive, and folks had settled into the rhythm. The occasional whoop and slap of work gloves, hands on leather chaps punctured the still summer air. 4,000 hooves kicked up a lot of Oklahoma red dirt. Cass wondered how far off the dust cloud could be seen. In less than a mile, they'd hit the Oklahoma county line, and the front of the herd was already on paved road, but she seriously doubted that she could sneak past the border. A helicopter buzzed overhead. A few of her volunteers looked up to track its movement. A couple of them waved, national news reporters or local. She shook her head, still surprised by the coverage. She might fail miserably, but at least she'd go out in a blaze of glory. She thought of the Bon Jovi song and chuckled. Oh yeah, Cyrus Barron definitely wants me dead or alive. Preferably dead, I'm sure. Cord led 2 horses in this little book. They need to come up with a pattern that makes it stay open easier. Okay. Cord had led 2 horses out of the trailer and handed the lead rope a one to chance. I can't believe all the legal hoops you've jumped through, getting rescued from the suit, and then you got Judge Reynolds to sign the order that they'll really put a twist in the old man's shorts. You don't have to come, Cord. I'm not twisting your arm. His brother laughed. No, you aren't. I'm doing it willingly, or because it'll piss off the old man. Plus, I want to see if this gets gal is good enough for you. Chance smoothed the blanket across the horse's withers, grabbed his saddle and tossed it up. He loosely cinched the girth, then slipped into the halter down as the bridled the animal. The question is whether or not I'm good enough for her. I screwed this one up royally. Cord clapped him on the shoulder. I still can't believe that you got Judge Reynolds to sign that order. He shrugged. I caught him in the bar at the club. Heidi will file it as soon as the court clerk's office opens, and she'll deliver a copy to the sheriff's office. He glanced at the expensive watch on his wrist. I just hope Cass got a late start this morning. She's been driving these cattle from can see to can't see. Cord chuckled. You've been reading Louis L'Amour. Again, he glanced toward the west. A few stars sparkled faintly against an indigo backdrop. Behind them is the east. The sun was banked by clouds and fiery red rays, grabbed by the dark sky. Red skies, Chance. I hope the weather holds. Getting caught out in the thunderstorm will be a very bad thing. They tied their horses to the trailer, and Cord grabbed a stainless steel thermos. He poured coffee into the travel mugs and handed one to Chance. This girl is riding you hard. I'm not sure that's a good thing. Chance stared off toward the horizon. She makes me want to be a better man than I am, Cord. How's that working for you? Hurts like hell, but I'm going to prove myself to her. I'm going to be that man come hell or high water. Oh, isn't that sweet? Sorry. Cass put her heels to the big sorrel, and the horse trotted up to join the Dun Boots Road. Red Wickered and Lucky answered back. The horses didn't care what was up ahead, that she couldn't see over the low rise in front of them. But she knew what waited on the other side. County Line Road. The helicopter still droned overhead, and she could see the media trucks set for the remote telecast. So far, she'd declined comment, but didn't stop any of her volunteer riders from answering reporters' questions. She rolled her neck. At the snap, crackle, and pop, Boots turned to watch her. Problems with your neck? Her laugh sounded as dry as the red dust coating the weeds lining the road. Nah, just stress. They rode in relative silence, but for the thud of hooves, Buddy's excited bark, and a few indignant moos, her horse tossed his head and pulled against the reins. Cass realized she had a death grip on them and loosened her fingers. Red stretched his nose out and shook his head again, which jangled the rings on his bit in his mouth. It'll be okay, honey. I'm glad you think so, Uncle Boots. I figured I'm on my way to jail as soon as we top that rise. Before he could reply, the two horsemen appeared, silhouetted for a moment before they cantered up the road. Her mouth straightened into a grim slash. Is that Chance? What the hell's he doing here? Don't go jumping to conclusions, Cassidy. Let the man talk before you bite his head off. And who's with him? Is he wearing a uniform? Is that a deputy? I never knew a deputy to wear a shirt like that, hun. She shaded her eyes. Chance wore a faded chambray shirt, but the man riding with him wore a bright and red plaid with fancy stitch and fringe and pearl buttons. Okay, that's the worst Western shirt I've ever seen. I heard that, the other man called. The men reined in and waited. When Cass and Boots came even with them, they turned their horses and fell in, Chance's riding knee to knee on her right side, and the other man beside them. My brother Cord Boots, Thomas, and Cassidy Morgan. Cord tipped his brim of his hat and pretended to be proud. I'm dressed up special for the rodeo. I can't believe you're dissing my shirt. I gotta get comfortable, so pardon me. She had to bite her lips. Cord definitely got all the charm in the family, working her mouth to keep from grinning. She cast an arch look in their direction. So why are you here? I have signed an injunction, Cass. You what? She twisted in her saddle and nailed his arm flat. Of all the low-down, cowardly, despicable, low-life, she sputtered out and spit so angry she couldn't even talk. Without warning, Chance grabbed her and hauled her out of her saddle and settled her across his thighs. His arms pinned hers to her sides, and she struggled anyway. Damn it, hold still, Cass. Let me go. His lips sealed on hers, cutting off her last word. She fought him. But as her mouth pressed against his and her tongue teased her lips open, her struggle lessened, and she relaxed. If pressing against him as her tongue intertwined with his could be called relaxing. With a raged gasp, he broke the kiss. Please listen, Cass. The injunction is against the sheriff and the city police. Judge Reynolds signed it so you can continue to drive the herd to Stockyard City. If someone were to ask her later, she'd vow that this was not enough of a sob bubbling in her throat, where his arms loosened enough. Oh, goodness. That she could move. She bunched the shirt into her fists and stared at him nose to nose. Swear you mean that. Swear I'm going to get that herd to Stockyards today so that they can go to sale tomorrow. On my honor, Cass, I know my word means nothing to you, but give me a chance to prove myself. That's why Cord and I are here. He kissed her again. Give me a chance to be the right man for you, to prove how much I love you. Oh, hi, Cass. I'm Cord, Chance's older, saner brother. Nice to meet you. She laughed, unable to stop the swing of her emotions from anger to giddy relief, with a pit stop of, oh my gosh, he really loves me. She glanced over at Cord, but returned her gaze to stare at Chance, her head slowly shaking from side to side. Hi, Cord, nice to meet you, I think. Then she thumped her fist against Chance's chest. Put me back on my horse, Buster. We have a herd to deliver. Yes, ma'am. A moment later, Chance's strong arm slid from around her, and she was back in her saddle. Behind her, cheers rose in sharp crescendo to the soothing lows from the herd. Did she have a chance to make her dad proud? She didn't dare hope. Not until she closed the gate on the last pin at the stockyards. Chance reached over and took her hand, gave it a little squeeze, and winked. Her heart danced a two-step in her chest. Then they topped the rise, and her heart stopped The road was blocked by black sheriff cruisers. The emergency lights were on top, blazing red and blue.